Good morning, CLC. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for your warmth. Thank you for being you. In this moment and at this time, I invite you to join me in remembrance of the you that you are. If you feel so inclined, go ahead and take a nice deep cleansing breath in, breathing in life and vitality. And as you release the breath, let go of all that no longer serves you. Allow your body to relax. Allow your mind to just pull in from anything in the past, push out anything in the future. Take another nice, deep, cleansing breath in. And as you release the breath, allow your mind to be here, now. Universal love enfolds me. Universal wisdom inspires me. Universal spirit enlightens me. Universal power encircles me. I am one, and all is well. As we begin this inner healing process, let me invite you to relax in quiet confidence, opening yourself up to the miracle-working higher power. Now symbolize the unity of your thinking and feeling nature by touching your chest with your hand, and let my words act as your own for your own inner healing, acceptance, and receptivity. I acknowledge that there is a power, intelligence, and wisdom greater than my own. I am in the midst of it, and it is in the midst of me, sensitive and receptive to my every thought, word, action, and feeling. I now make this true for myself by saying aloud, I acknowledge. Acknowledging this higher power working through my life, I admit that I am personally responsible for solving my own problems while being guided and assisted by something greater than myself. As I am ready to surrender the conflicts of my ego to the wisdom of this infinite presence, I simply speak these words. I surrender. Knowing that forgiveness is the key to unconditional love and the feeling of heaven, I now unconditionally forgive anyone and everyone who has ever injured me in any way, real or imagined. And I now forgive myself for all of my mistaken judgments and their resulting actions. From my deepest level of understanding, I now say, I forgive. Realizing that I continually experience the effects of my own thinking, I now choose to allow this higher power to recreate me deeply, filling my heart with thoughts that are only constructive, positive, loving, and beautiful. I call upon this divine inflow by stating aloud, I choose. I now center upon that one very special idea that I'm willing to accept as real for me in this coming week. Visualizing that idea as already acted upon and brought to pass. In seeing my idea become a fact of my experience, I enjoy the happiness and peace of my thought fulfilled and gratefully speak these words. I accept. Knowing that I have an everlasting place in the midst of the power that sustains all creation, as well as the support of all those around me, I allow myself to relax in the peace of fulfillment and gratitude and say, I release. Now, in my mind's eye, I envision the presence of someone near and dear to me. This can be a friend, a family member, a teacher or mentor, someone who has touched my life in deep and loving ways. Someone who may not be physically present in this room or even on this planet anymore. I turn to that image in my mind's eye and say, I'm grateful for the good in your life. Now I open my eyes, turn to the world around me, and joyfully speak to anyone physically present in this room or virtually on this broadcast, and share in confidence and gratitude in saying, I'm grateful for the good in your lives.
Jeffrey and I were talking beforehand, and it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 29 or 30 years that he's been our music director. Somewhere in there. It was very poignant at the time, and still is whenever we bring it up, because his father had recently passed, and my mother had recently passed, and we sat down together at a restaurant down in the city, and he said, oh man, do you need to be doing this right now? And I said, yeah, I absolutely do. And we had a wonderful time, and we've been friends and collaborators ever since. So, until this morning, where it all ended. No, just kidding. I'd had enough. Okay, so the question often comes up, well, not really, but once in a while, is the purpose of this teaching, is the purpose of the science of mind to improve our conditions, or is it to increase our self-awareness? And the answer is very clearly yes. It's both. It's both. When you improve your conditions, you grow in self-awareness because you have less to worry about. Conditions are under control. They're working themselves out. When you have greater self-awareness, you have greater poise and confidence in approaching the conditions of your life. And this is true not only for the individual, but it's true in society as well. So this month we're working through some material from an amazing spiritual teacher by the name of Raymond Charles Barker. And if you want to know more about him, see my talk from last week where I gave you a solid 10 minutes on the man and who he is. And I'm not going to repeat that all again, except to say that for about 45 years, he was this amazing spiritual teacher. He had a community in New York City, and he wrote copiously. And one of the books he wrote is The Science of Successful Living, and it fell off my shelf when I asked the room, when I asked the thin air, as I do all the time, what should I be speaking about in the month to come? The book launched itself, right? You see, she's nodding. You know how this works. It launched itself into my space, off my shelf, which is crowded with new thought and other material, and presented itself for you. So here it is. And the gist of the thing is, today he's asking us, he said, what would you rather be doing? What would you rather be doing? Now, the obvious approach to that question is in the here and now. What would I rather be doing? And I hope that you'd rather be doing exactly what you are doing, which is sitting here through a service. If there's something else you'd rather be doing right now, go do it. Go do it. And I say that without any kind of edge. It's just, it may be something that you can do that you didn't know you could do until you heard that you could, through something like this teaching. And I used to say, when we were in the room only, before we had the online presence, and I'd look at the room and I'd say, well, there maybe not as many people here as there were last Sunday. And I picked this up from a colleague, I don't remember who, a long time ago. They said, if somebody's not at my center in a Sunday service, they're out sailing the boat on the lake that they got as a result of using these principles. They're at the wonderful job that they got as a result of using these principles. They're in that amazing relationship that they landed as a result. So how can you count an empty seat as a loss, as a setback? No, it's a win. Somebody's out there expressing life more abundantly. But when you ask yourself the question, what would I rather be doing, where it's more useful to consider rather than just in the present moment of this or that, is would you rather be doing something different, or would you rather be doing things differently? Would you rather be doing something different or doing things differently? Often we fall into thinking that if I just had something different to do, I'd feel differently about it. Bring me a new opportunity, I'll rise to the occasion. Make me a star, and I'll prove your faith in me well-founded. And so we move from experience to experience, job to job, relationship to relationship, even religion to religion. You come in this room, for example, and you see the banners representing the major faith traditions of the world. And you might look and think, well, I feel kind of stuck where I am, so maybe take that one back there, and I'll study it. It's from a different culture than my own. I have a lot to learn about it. And so I'll read the readings, and I'll meditate the meditations, and I'll pray the prayers. And you know what? It's going to walk me up to the same place at which I arrived, following the path on which my feet were originally set. We always encounter our own resistance. We travel to the end of our tether, if you will. We get to the place of our own issues. Every faith system on the planet. People aren't aware of this, and they think, I need something exotic. I need something otherworldly. And I need something that will annoy my parents. They will have their heads in their hands over and so I'll go off and do this. I'll shave my head. I don't have far to go with that myself, but for many it's quite a radical step. I'll go and do this strange thing, just because it's exotic and different, because maybe I can circumvent my feelings about who I am. But you can't. Because what all these amazing religious paths, spiritual paths, take you on is a journey of self-discovery, and self-discovery is about learning where you've fixed your own limits. We fix our own limits. We say, I can't go any further than this. I'm only so smart. I'm only so young. I'm only so powerful. I'm only so gifted. And so we set the territory. We mark the perimeters of and that's as far as we can go. And when we get there and we bounce off that wall a few times, we blame the path. We blame the teachers. Well, back in the day, and we go find something else. And now, if you do this as a hobby and you're aware that you're doing it, it's one thing. But if you're doing it obliviously to the kind of insane nature of it, in fact, it's this repetitious thing that gets you nowhere, well, that's not useful. So what do we learn to do? We learn to look at who we are as we go along on the journey. We learn to manage our minds. Barker says, the reason I love this man's work so much, I have to be honest with you, is he agrees with me. You know what I mean? I'm not like, what? Everything he says is like, yep. and he says it better than I do. So that's perfect, you know, because it makes my life a lot easier if I don't have to like come up with this way to deliver it. He puts words together in this beautiful way. He says feeling and emotion are everything. That's exactly right. Feeling and emotion are everything. Feeling and emotion and thought. Thought guiding feeling and emotion. Feeling and emotion is everything that we're lacking. It's everything we're lacking in our prayer life. It's everything we're lacking in our spirituality, right? I was raised in a beautiful spiritual tradition that was largely book-based. Many are. The three principal Western religions call themselves religions of the book. Guess what the book is? But there are other books too. Ours was the Book of Common Prayer, and the Book of Common Prayer took what was in the big book and kind of, well, slimmed it down, but put it in beautiful English prose, and you had prayers for this and prayers for that and prayers for the royal family, and it was, it's this lovely thing. And to me, it was entirely devoid of feeling. Now, that was me. That's not their fault. That was me. That was me because I just didn't let myself feel any of this, or I don't know, it didn't come in on the right wavelength for me. When I came into this teaching, it said feeling is everything. How do you feel about yourself? So what difference does it make? It only matters what God thinks of me. That's what I've been taught. Isn't that what most of us have been taught? Doesn't matter what you think. Doesn't matter what you feel. What does God think of you? Let me read you something Barker says about that. I could read you this whole book and it'd be worth your hour, you know? Knowing an omnipresent God. Knowing an omnipresent God, as we do. Omnipresent meaning everywhere present. All omni means all, so it's everywhere present. Knowing an omnipresent God, you have no one to whom to pray. Gone are all personality, whims and caprice, clouds, thrones, and golden streets. Drag, isn't it? Those golden streets, especially in the summertime when they run with milk and honey. And it gets all kind of sticky and clotted and nasty, you know. Gone are all personality, whims, and caprice. Who has personality, whims, and caprice? I do. You do. Humans do at the human level. We're not praying anymore to a humanoid God. We're not praying anymore to a God who's just a great big ballooned up human hanging out there in space, waiting to slap you down. That is why some people find it difficult to feel at home in this teaching, besides my teaching. Their training has been such that a personal God is necessary to them. They still need the feeling that God will do something for them because of their religious belief that he might not do for others. And as I shared with you last night, I love to at this point bring in George Carlin. Somewhat. Because he gets filthy, you know, but where he says, God doesn't care about religion at all. Ever. Never has. God is not in the business of religion. And I would take that and extend it and say, you know, if God were in the business of religion, God wouldn't have time to create nature. Wouldn't have time to create love and poetry and harmony and music and all the rest of this stuff. Be so busy poring over doctrine and writing lengthy books for people to study. And, you know, no, it's not about which religious path you're on. To say that God is everywhere evenly present means to many that God is nowhere. But we know something different, don't we? God is everywhere evenly present, everywhere evenly distributed across the landscape. And we look at that and we say, how is such a thing possible? Because I don't know anything else that can do that. Well, there isn't anything else that can do that. Because there isn't anything else but God. All there is God. Now, at this point in the story, I often say, if my use here of the word God is falling hard on your ears, you have the power to translate. You have the power to call it something else. But if I don't call it God, you won't realize that's what I'm talking about. Right? So I want you to understand, we're talking about that same deity that you heard about as a kid, That when you prayed, God bless mommy, God bless daddy, it was that same deity that you were invoking and working with. But if the word God has been so sullied for you that it sounds like a big angry humanoid figure, then by all means find some other expression. And in these world faith traditions, there are so many. There are so many. I personally, I go, it depends on the season really. I think of it as the source. I think of it as the goddess sometimes. Especially the I am. The great I am. Because that takes it out of the human picture, takes it out of being gendered and having certain roles and things that kind of being pigeonholed in some way. The great I am is the great becoming. It's the I am that is becoming, and it's becoming through our lives and what we do. So we turn to that. And it says to us, you are the experience that I am having in this world at this time by means of you. And then we may fall back into old patterns and say to it, what do you want me to do? And you know what it's going to say back to you? What do you want to do? How do you feel about it? In this respect, maybe in more respects than this one, but certainly in this respect, Spirit or Source or the great I am acts like a therapist. You go to a therapist and you say, therapist, should I do this thing? Should I make this change in my life? You know what the therapist is going to say? How do you feel about it? Well, I'm a little worried. Well, what about it worries you? Or, well, I'm really excited about it. Well, what about it excites you? And so on. And the therapist is going to take you within on your own journey. Therapist isn't going to tell you what you ought to do. That's not a therapist doing that then. And you probably ought to get up and leave because it's somebody who's wanting to control outcomes, Well, Spirit works the same way. Source, God, works the same way. You go to God. What is your will for me? You know what God says? I am. I am that I am. And you're like, well, that's no help. What am I supposed to do with that? Go be you. Go be you. Go express as you will. And if you're not happy with some path of expression, pick another one. Or get happy. Or get happy. That's always a possibility. It's like in terms of problem solving in human relationships, there are several different outcomes that we don't spot easily. We think, well, like if I'm having a problem with you, say, well, you need to change. Okay, that's pretty clear. I'm having a problem with you. You need to change. Why? Because I'm the one having the problem. So you need to change. And that isn't even logical if you sit with it long enough, but it is the first reaction we have. I'm having a problem with you, so you need to change. Here's another possible outcome. I change, and I no longer have a problem with you, and you're still being who you are. Here's another possible outcome. We go our separate ways. Here's another possible outcome. We go our separate ways, and I keep meeting you on the road behind a different face. Because I've never changed the dynamics of how I approach relationships with people like you. And maybe I learned from that eventually. I say, there's a pattern here. Things keep working out the same way over and over. And I come to my senses and I realize what needs to happen. One of the most profound changes that can occur, though, is people can change obviously on their own and are changing on their own. But one of the most powerful changes that can happen, is what I already mentioned in there, is the one where the person in question does not change, but it no longer bothers you that they haven't changed. Now, is that a more evolved approach than any of the others? No, it's just another way of looking at things that we don't often consider. What if I breathe through it? And we use examples. There's so many examples you can pull from daily life. It's ridiculous. But one of them is how people drive, because we're a driving culture here. If we were in Barker's home territory, we'd talk about how people ride the subway, and whether they get up and give you their seat or how they crowd in the doors and they don't let other people off the car first and all of this, right? But in our part of the world, it's about how people drive. And we assume that if somebody's driving badly in front of us, it's about us. That they hate us for some reason. And we get angry and weird and defensive about that, when in fact they're just not paying attention, or they're texting, or they're, who knows. or they're having the worst day of their life. Or as Gary Zukov in one of his books said, they're having the best day of their life. It's like, ooh, we don't want to go there because we're offended by their behavior. They can't be happier than we are. But he says, what if somebody just got the greatest news of their life, and they got in their car to drive someplace, and their head is just filled with all of this, and they don't see you? Now, that's not good driving, but it's not bad living. See? It's because we all get distracted. And how nice to imagine. And his point was that it's you who's doing the imagining about this. What if everybody out there, not just the ones who act foolish, but what if everybody out there is having the best day of their lives? What if there's nobody to fix? What if there's nobody to change? What if there's, gasp, nobody to rescue? Nobody who has to be plucked out of the slime, of miserable human conditions and set right on their feet by me, and if I don't do it, who will? And so I feel martyred by it because there's so many and I'm so tired. And what if we just kind of set all that drama aside a little bit and say there is a power that's greater than I am, and it's not only right where I am, it's right where everybody else is too, and what I can know is that that power is working through them right now. It's a powerful way of looking at things, but it's the only way that really helps. So I've got a little more Barker for you. To spend the greatest amount of your time each week earning and spending money, washing, clothing, and feeding the body, with a few additional hours of recreation, will never induce spiritual evolution. These things need to be done, but your mental attitude while doing them determines whether you're on the pathway of the Spirit or merely putting in the necessary years from the date on your birth certificate until finally there is a date on your death certificate. Ouch. A friend of mine sent me a meme one time. It says, your life is about more than paying bills until you die. Your life is about more than paying bills until you die. And we forget that sometimes, don't we? Because we're, from the date of student loans onward, we're paying bills, and it seems like we'll never get ahead, and it seems like, and the dreams get further and further away. But it's how you do what you do. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of repetition in life. Laundry piles up. There's really nothing you can do about that. If you have lots of money, you can hire somebody to, they'll come and pick it up and go do it and bring it home. But you got to call them, and you got to pay them. So it's a repetitive task there. And frankly, I love to iron. That's that's going to be in my autobiography, is how much I love to iron. Because when I was a little kid, my grandmother ironed sheets even. This is what the older ones did, right? They ironed stuff you wouldn't necessarily, towels and things like that. Everything got ironed. And so a little kid, I'd watch, and one day when I was big enough where I could see over the ironing board, I said, can I try that? And she said, sure. And she knew, now I can turn this. Finally, I can get out from behind all of this ironing for the family. I can turn it over to the kid, And I liked it. And I still love it. And you know why I love it? Because it's a measurable outcome. See, I work in a field where there are not a lot of measurable outcomes. I can't stand here and see if this message is getting through, if your life is changing, if you're happier or better. I mean, I can to a degree because you tell me and stuff. But so much of it is it's creating content and putting it out there and seeing what happens. But when I iron a shirt, the thing stays ironed until I wear it. It's done. There it is. And I put it on a hanger, and you get the idea. Washing a car is another thing. Washing a dog is another. It's done. Then you see it. But the dog is going to get dirty in the car, and you get the picture. It's all going to have to be repeated. But what if you look at it as a yoga? What if you look at it as, what is that, karma yoga? You look at it as a spiritual task, like Brother Lawrence did in Practicing the Presence of God, who washed dishes in a monastery refectory. It was a practice for him of meditation, repetitive action and meditation. You see, it's all how we manage the consciousness. He calls spiritual mind treat a working technique. He says, you cannot reform anyone but yourself, nor do you need to. We only treat ourselves. This came up in class the other night. Somebody said, that they'd heard that in spiritual mind treatment you only treat yourself. Was that true? I said, yes, absolutely. And I was a little bit ashamed that I hadn't brought that up because we're in the middle of the class already, that we don't treat at other people. We don't launch prayer at other people to get them to be different, even to get them to be well. We treat ourselves to know that there's a principle and a power that everybody's using, and if you need something, I affirm and know that the principle that responds to your need is the same principle that's hearing my word. There's a harmonious, it's been called a harmony phase entrainment by, I forget who now, but somebody back in the day called it that, who was doing some kind of scientific work on how prayer delivers. And it's like there's a wavelength that we get on together where your desires and my word mesh, and something is moved at the level of spirit in your life. He says your moods are determined by your subconscious mind. The sum total of your previous experience and feelings usually determines them. And I'm going to get into that more next week. But the subconscious mind, I can change my moods. I can change my moods by ironing a shirt, but how my moods get the way they do is by my interpretation of reality up to this point. Everything I've been through, every experience I've had, has shaped me in some way. The family I came from, the society I grew up in, and on and on. Furthermore, the people around me are having moods as well, and all of this is going into a subconscious field from which I draw and into which I deposit my own awareness. And that's called the collective consciousness or the species consciousness, or Holmes back in his day called it the race consciousness, meaning the human race, the human species. That all of us contribute into this, some awareness, we draw from it, and we add to it. Last week, talking about states of consciousness, I brought up different species, and I brought up how humans are the only neurotic species, and I got some feedback through the week from a couple of people who are, animal lovers, who said, no, dogs can be neurotic, cats can be neurotic. And I said, I understand, with all due respect, don't bite me. Don't bite my ankles, okay? I understand that. I agree. Humans make them neurotic. Okay? You're not going to find a dog sitting at the kitchen table leafing through its high school yearbook okay, from decades before, feeling badly about itself. Humans do that. Humans do that. And on the flip side, we are graced with, apparently, a greater capacity for self-realization than other species possess. I'm not willing to die on that hill. I'm just saying I think it's because we can use these imaginations so creatively, so extensively, that we make stuff up. I watched a video, I'm about to wind down here. I watched a video the other night. I watch a lot of music videos in between working for God on your behalf. And little guilt, isn't that good, right? Right before giving time, you want to put a little guilt in. No, just kidding. So anyway, I have the music that I know and love, the familiar stuff that I visit, and then I always include a lot of new stuff that new genres of music that I'm not familiar with. I happened across something called J-pop. I happened across, they are called baby metal. You got to look up baby metal. You know baby metal? Okay, you got to look. I did not know baby metal. You got to look up baby metal. Baby metal blends J-pop, which is like K-pop, only Japanese, and it's with the amazing dance routines. Young women doing amazing dance routines to blasting, crunching, power chord heavy metal in front of, I'd guess, 80,000 people in this stadium. And I mean, it is something else. And people from both the K-pop, J-pop world and the metal world are saying, wow, I never thought, it's like when you cook. I never thought to put that ingredient in that dish. We've never done it that way in our family, you know. That's not how Grandma made, well, something new. So there's always innovation out there. And we admire it. But more than that, we carry it. We carry it. We are that. We are that, those innovators in spirit. So I would like to close this morning. I got a lot more for you, but we got 3 more weeks to go. Next week is going to be Father's Day.